without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need you to.
Show. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend Rashid, and we're having major technical difficulties before the show starts. Man, it's crazy. Listen, as we wait for our guest to appear, our CIA analyst Larry Johnson. Let me just tell you, it was a chore. It was a job to get on live. On all of the platforms, I was being disconnected. They had changed the times on each one of them. On Rumble, they had it at 1:30, I believe, and on Odyssey they had it for 16 days, something like that. I'm serious, and I'm working trying to get all of these things in line and in order. And I'm not sure. We got disconnected off of locals also. So this is the price that you have to pay for truth. And this is the price that we are prepared to pay to get the truth out to the people. And we know that we're going to have to go through all of this. But as we wait for Larry, matter of fact, let me shoot him a little text message real quick. Give me 1 second while we're talking. 1 second, everybody. We are live. Boom. Anyway, so everybody, I want to start off again and say thank you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. Don't think my energy level is low. It's not. But dealing with the frustration to get on the air, to get knocked off, get on, get knocked off, get on, it sometimes get under your skin a little bit, but you got to keep it pushing, okay? And everybody, please hit the like button. It doesn't cost you a thing. Hit the like button. So as we wait for Larry, we're going to discuss a few things until he gets the message, all right? There was something that I just saw in the news that caught my attention, okay? And here it is right here. Here it is right here. Let me pull it up. I'm not going to pull it up on the main screen. I'm going to pull it up on one of the side monitors. And I haven't had a chance to read it. But this is the headline. Houthis essentially eliminated U.S. carrier group from Asia without having to fire a shot. And as we wait for Larry, we'll read a little bit of this and try to break it down and analyze what is actually going on, because it's very important that you see all of the global events taking place. Each one of these events may seem isolated, but in reality, all of these things are dots that once connected paints a bigger picture of what is going on with the American Empire, the British Empire, the Western world, and the world that was once thought to be second and third world, and how they're rising and trying to break the chains of colonialism towards independence. All of these things are dots in that, okay? And as we connect each dot, we see the picture a little bit better, a little brighter, all right? So it says, with the redeployment of the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier from Asia to the Middle East, Yemen's Houthi fighters are tying up 2 U.S. carrier strike groups, undermining American plans against China in the Indo-Pacific. It is the Asia-Pacific, but they use Indo-Pacific. U.S. Defense News and Analysis site 1945 has grumbled. They have essentially eliminated the Carl Vinson from East Asia without having to fire a shot. 1945 pointed out, warning that this severely undermines the U.S. strategy for Taiwan and benefits China. Now, let's stop right there. We can see right now that the policy planners have their eyes on China in the Asia Pacific, or if they want to call it the Indo-Pacific, we'll say for now the Indo-Pacific. And they use this. Let's read this part again. They have essentially eliminated the Carl Vinson from East Asia without having to fire a shot. 1945 pointed out, warning that this severely undermines the U.S. strategy for Taiwan and benefits China. Now, stop right there. According to 90+% of the nations on the planet, aside for 3 or 4 small nations, every nation on the planet has acknowledged that there is a one China and that Taiwan is an integral part of China. That's just like the world has acknowledged that Texas, though Texas was once an independent country, is an integral part of the United States. So if China was to deploy aircraft carriers to the Gulf of Mexico and say that these carriers aid us in our support for Texas, how would the United States take that? Because you know there are secessionist movements that are bubbling up all across America, and especially and specifically in Texas. How would the United States see that? As a provocation, as a threat, and as an act of war. But somehow, in some way, in the minds of the lunatics in the West, they see it different. They see protecting Taiwan, even though they acknowledge that Taiwan is an integral part of China. And there's only one China. And so by the deployment of U.S. carrier groups to that area to aid Taiwan is to aid secessionists and to be an affront to the one China policy and the sovereignty and the unity of the Chinese nation. They don't see it. In their minds, they think that using Taiwan as an instrument to beat at China and to stymie its growth and stymie its full reunification is a plus for the American empire, because it gives them added leverage to use against China whenever they feel like China is veering too far out of America's sphere of control or influence. Western hypocrisy. Okay, hopefully Larry has gotten the message and he'll be on shortly. You know, just like with when we had one of the guests that came late, it's okay. They'll be here. If not, we'll redo the show. But I want to address something. Okay, so let's go further, because I didn't read this. I saw the article when I was trying to get online, and I kept getting knocked offline by StreamYard and YouTube. So it says, and for those of you who are looking, I have on this screen here, it says excellent internet connection on my studio, my YouTube studio, excellent connection. Let's see on Rumble. Do they have that? Well, Rumble doesn't have whether it's excellent connection or not, but YouTube and my computer is saying excellent connection. So any buffering, any stalling, or any getting knocked off is not an internet connection problem. It is a StreamYard and YouTube problem, okay? All right. So, again, let's go a little further. And everybody, please smash the like button as we wait for Larry to join us, okay? Excuse me. The deployment also means that the Navy has actually pondered the unthinkable, that the Truman or the Vinson could be hit by a Houthi missile. Now, if the Navy and if the War Department have thought that with the limited resources that the Houthis have could hit, damage, devastate, or actually sink a carrier group, shouldn't they think even more about, with all of the capabilities that the Chinese have, that they can do that in an instance? So why is it pressing? And why is it on their minds that, hey, maybe the Houthis can sink this? when the Chinese has the largest inventory of missiles in the world? And they don't consider that. It is because when you are desperate, you do desperate things. And desperation plays a part into your thinking, your strategic thinking, making missteps. You understand? So let's go further. Oh, shout out to Red Panda Pie. Shout out to Vera. Shout out to Phobos Moon. Hey guys, thank you all. We're waiting for Larry. Okay. Larry is a busy guy. I understand that. So it is what it is. All right. Let's go a little further on this. In the Middle East, an op-ended shooting war with the Houthis would be disastrous. It is limited in scope now, but a carrier hit would raise the stakes to Vietnam War or even World War II-like combat posture, the site predicted. Well, if the site predicted this, then what the hell do you think would happen if they escalated with Iran? With Iran's military capabilities? Because the United States has acknowledged that the Houthis, or Ansar Allah, has gotten some of their military capabilities from Iran, from Russia, and from China. So if they are worried about the capabilities of the Yemeni people against U.S. carrier groups, why are they still pushing for escalation with Iran and with China, with their military capabilities dwarfing that of the Houthis? Huh? Let's go further. See, we dissect this stuff because people like, hold on one second. I think I might have somebody in there. Hold on, everybody. Let me see. Okay. I thought somebody was in the booth. As we wait for Larry, let's continue to chop it up. All right. It says, the stubborn Houthis have the missiles to make the Americans stay out of range. Well, if they have that, what do you think China has? What do you think Iran has? If the Houthis have a limited amount of strike weapons and missiles, what do you think that Iran's military capabilities are concerning a U.S. carrier group? And yet the U.S. has no problem with escalation. What do you think in reference to China? Since China has the largest inventory of medium range, short range, and long range ballistic missiles in the world. What do you think their capabilities vis-a-vis U.S. carrier groups are? And why is the United States so concerned about the Houthis or Ansar Allah? And yet they're using that to try to play up a repivot to Asia. The lunacy is unimaginable in the halls of D.C., London, Paris, Berlin, and Brussels. I'm telling you. So it says, the stubborn Houthis have the missiles to make the Americans stay out of range, presenting an unprecedented threat to U.S. military power, primed to take on defenseless countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. So if this is unprecedented when it concerns the Houthis, what do you think would make a precedent when they are confronted with dealing with a nation like Iran, whose missile powers are the cream of the crop in West Asia? And then if we pivot to Asia proper, what do you think would be the precedents set by the Chinese when they have the largest inventory of ballistic missiles that can target and that are made specifically to target not only one ship, but carrier battle groups with a hypersonic power behind it, hypersonic speed behind them? Has anybody thought this through? Shout out to M. Sparks. All right. Let's go a little further. The outlet warned that even if the U.S. sought to eliminate every fighter in the event of a successful carrier attack, it would take a land warfare force of Marines, and there is no way this administration would ever put boots on the ground in the Middle East again. So if that's the case, then how the hell do you think they're going to win a war against Iran? See, what you don't understand is that the Houthis are one component to the war against Iran, which is a component against the war against China, which is a component against the war against Russia. Let me take you into this for a minute. As I told you before on multiple shows, the killing of Rafik Hariri in Lebanon was one of the starting points to get the Syrian military out of Lebanon, so that then Israel would be primed to take control of the skies, so that when America and the West put in their plans to destabilize Syria, which now everything that I've told you on Syria, all of these other websites are now coming out verifying what I told you about Assad, what I told you about Russia's dealing with Assad, what I told you about Iran's dealing with Assad. All of them are now coming out verifying the things that I was telling you when it was happening. Okay. So now Israel gains this control of the skies, and they can bleed the Syrians a death by 1,000 strikes from the south. You have an influx of U.S. forces from the east, and then you have Turkey and an influx of terrorists from the north. They get rid of Assad, right? They get rid of the leadership of Hezbollah. After negotiating a deal with Hezbollah, the United States did this, then sending AWACS into the sky, because the deal was a ceasefire and a return to normalcy. And as soon as Sheikh Nasrallah let his guard down and was about to announce to the people that a deal was made between the Americans, Hezbollah, and the Americans' allies, the United States gave the go-ahead to strike Hezbollah's leadership, to decimate the leadership, as they gave Israel the okay to decimate the leadership of Hamas. All of this is to keep American empire. I see Larry in the building. I believe that this stuff right here is, well, we'll have Larry take on it because Larry's in the building, and I'm gonna bring him up on the screen. My friend Larry Johnson is in the building. How's it going, Larry?
Hey, man. Yeah, I sent you a message last night. I was going to be delayed.
Okay.
Apparently you didn't get it.
No, I just checked the messages. I was having problems, and I just checked the messages. I'm sorry, Larry, but
well, that's all right. I just didn't want you to think I was standing you up.
No, I was telling everybody that when you gave me your word, you'll be here. Just give you a little time. I was telling everybody. But Larry, what is going on? Because we have the peace president given the go-ahead to take out the leadership of Hamas, the leadership of Hezbollah. We see the overthrow of the Syrian government, and now we see the attacks on the Houthis. What happened to the peace?
You know, we got what I'm going to call this the Broadway star syndrome. Okay, that's our policy. You know, you got the Broadway star who's the star of the show. Man, if we just get rid of that star, we'll take that star off stage, that'll cause the whole play to go to hell. It'll collapse. Can't continue without the star. That's why we got to get rid of Vladimir Putin. That's why we got to get rid of Saddam Hussein. That's why we got to get rid of Hassan Nasrallah. You know, go down the list. And yet in the real world, you know, even on Broadway, star goes down, star's got laryngitis, they got a cold, they're out. Up comes the understudy. Oh, shades of Barbara Streisand, a star is born. You okay? So just because the person we're used to having in the lead role disappears doesn't mean that the whole organization collapses. Mm-hmm. And you know, Trump and team, and it's not just Trump, it was done under Biden. Mm-hmm. They always labor under this myth that all we got to do is just wipe out this one person, kill that one person, kill these 10 people, and then things will be better and be different. No, that's not really how the real world works. So right now, as I was listening a little bit to your rant on Syria, an appropriate rant. They got rid of Bashar al-Assad. Things are great now in Syria, aren't they? Oh, no. Yeah. In fact, I had someone say, "How?" Because I pointed out that at least when Bashar al-Assad was in, uh, he wasn't out rounding up all the Christians and Alawites and whacking them and killing them. Uh, he did protect some of the religious groups. He wasn't as brutal as his father, Hafez, who killed a large number of Sunni Muslims. But nonetheless, they get rid of Bashar al-Assad, and that'll settle the war, that'll settle the conflict, and it didn't. In fact, it's gotten worse. It's made it more unstable, less predictable. So I see that the United States and particularly the Trump administration right now falsely, wrongly believe all they got to do is just bomb the hell out of Iran. They kill the key leaders, and things will be great. I'm just here to suggest that that's a wrong way to think about it, and that's a dangerous way to think about it. And that if Trump carries through with these attacks on Iran, it very well could mark the real beginning of the end of his presidency and his effectiveness.
Well, he has these advisors around him, and surely they're supposed to be informed about the economic situations that would follow any bombing of Iran, and what Iran's plans would be to shut down the Strait of Hormuz and to strike back. You have over 50,000 U.S. troops in that region that could come under attack. Shouldn't they be more thorough in their in their public speaking about Iran with all of these braggadocious threats and what I would say a move to force capitulation with Iran?
Hey, who was surrounding Snow White, huh? The seven dwarfs. Okay, those seven dwarfs, man, they look like the Harlem Globetrotters basketball team in terms of height compared to this team that Trump has. I mean, Trump's got a bunch of boys, a bunch of guys that have not a lot of experience with this, and aren't about to stand up to him and say, "Hey, Mr. President," just say it politely, but just say, "That's the damnedest, stupidest thing I've ever heard, and you shouldn't do that." No, they're not going to say that to him. Like Hegseth, the minute Trump said, "Okay, yeah, I want to order those bombings in Yemen." Now they started on 15 March, but that means that the orders to do that, to prepare for it, were given out at least 4 or 5 days prior to that. And at no point did Hegseth have enough experience and enough knowledge and courage. You're going to say, "Mr. President, I understand what you're wanting to do, but you need to understand that if we put our ships into the Red Sea, our ability to sustain our operations there is very limited. And at some point, you're going to have to add other assets into the fray, which is one of the reasons those B-2 bombers are sitting out in Diego Garcia. They can now fly into Yemen to bomb the Yemenis, because the ships got to come out. They're going to run out of missiles, and they don't have any way to rearm, resupply at sea." But nobody said that to him. He's talking about attacking Iran. And again, somebody say, "Mr. President, we cannot guarantee that Iran's air defenses were weakened or even significantly destroyed during the October 27th raid by Israel. In fact, it looks like Iran has then bolstered its air defense systems. And we would be, if we fly any of our planes over Iranian territory, we'll run a significant risk that they'll be shot down." Again, somebody needs to say this to them. But no, they just, they button up and kiss the ass, man.
Well,
That's why. That's why the number one seller or product seller in Washington D.C. chapstick.
I hope everybody in the chat got what Larry just said.
Yeah. Got to keep those lips greased up as you're kissing all that ass.
Well, Larry, with that, aren't those people derelict of their duties if they don't give a straight assessment about that? And couldn't they be held responsible for the policy mistakes if they give the wrong information knowingly and cause the war to take place? Because if America goes to war with Iran, that's not just going to be any kind of war. That's going to be a regional war that would break the empire's back economically.
Hey, I'd say, man, you talking crazy. You think they're going to hold somebody accountable in Washington, D.C.? What are you? What have you been drinking today? Okay. I mean, accountability? God, they can't even spell that word, much less make sure that people actually are held accountable. No, look, you're thinking about this the right way, what should be, how it should be done. But that's not how they're doing it. They do it the exact opposite way. If you're a screw up, if you really mess things up, you usually get promoted. They give you more money, more responsibility. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, you really made a disaster of that. Here, let's see what you can do at this next level. That's unfortunately what we've had going on for way too long in Washington, D.C. So, there's a lot of I'll call them questionable assumptions about Iran. One, for example, is I've frequently heard, and some people like Scott Ritter will insist that now Russia is not going to get involved. Russia's not going to get involved to help Iran at all if Iran's attacked. They may be correct, but let me suggest you're assuming that the Russians don't have anything at stake. Let me explain to you why I think they do. Number one, starting 8 years ago, or a minimum of 7 years ago, but I think it's more likely 8, Russia got together with the Iranian military, and they said, let's plan joint military exercises, and let's do it with the Chinese. So for the last 7 years, you've had the Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians conducting an annual joint military exercise in March. Now, why do you think they're doing that? Just because they're bored and got nothing better to do? Or it's part of making a commitment to the defense of Iran? Then we got this January 17th deal that Iran signed with Moscow. And Moscow made it very clear in there that basically if you are unjustly attacked, Russia will take every measure in its power to basically defend you. Third, Russia is busy trying to build an alternative to the Western economic order. They've been a victim of Western sanctions. That's why they've turned to BRICS as a way to break out of the control that the West tries to exercise over it. And to that end, one of the priorities for Russia is establishing this north-south corridor through Iran that takes you from the Indian Ocean through Azerbaijan up into Russia. A new hub, if you will, for moving cargo. You can load it up on trains, and you can just chug north and do it as cheap, if not cheaper, than putting them on a ship, sending it through the Suez Canal, sending it through the Strait, the Dardanelles that separate, that Turkey controls as the entrance to the Black Sea. So when you take all that into account, I maintain that Russia actually has a significant interest in preventing the overthrow of the Iranian government and the Ayatollah, because they've got long-term plans for Iran, and I think they will actually help defend Iran against a U.S. attack, which means this could grow into a big damn war.
Well, why do you think they brush it aside that Russia could get involved or China could get involved? I mean, it's so much hubris in the halls of D.C. that that they've drunk the imperial Kool-Aid so long that they can't. I mean, they're inebriated. They cannot get sober. And shouldn't someone stand up and say, "Hey, listen, the reality of it is this. We think this, but all the signs point toward this." So why is that so hard to come by in D.C.?
Because it's all about making the money. They don't care about doing the right thing. Many do not. It's totally absurd. But you're proceeding from the assumption that people actually sit down and think about this. That they think about it logically. They don't. It's illogical, man. It is, sometimes doing the right thing is seen as a problem. And people have been punished for doing the right thing. That's what's crazy about this. So I'm afraid Trump's going to do it. I hope this turns out to be just one more example of him shooting his mouth off, making threats that he doesn't intend on following through on. That'll be the best outcome.
But isn't one of his biggest donors Adelson's wife?
Miriam Adelson.
And she is gung ho against Iran.
Yeah, well, she's sitting safe in her condo in Las Vegas. She doesn't have to worry about a bomb being launched at her. But if the United States decides to attack Iran, I think the odds are very high that Iran will be able to significantly prevent a number of the U.S. bombers and missiles from reaching the target. Some will get hit, and Iran I'm sure, will suffer some damage. But then Iran's going to turn around and unleash a missile barrage on U.S. bases and probably oil infrastructure in the Persian Gulf to take out the Saudis. Unless the only thing that would save the Saudis and the Emiratis and those in Abu Dhabi is if they prevent their airspace from being used by the United States to launch attacks. If that's the case, then they will. Iran may pull its punches on the oil infrastructure, but they're certainly going to go after and work to destroy the U.S. bases. And I think this also leads to some significant attacks in Israel. So we'll see.
But wouldn't that collapse? First of all, with the global climate already looking suspicious of collapse, wouldn't that collapse the global economy and send the American economy into a downward tailspin, which is already, we're seeing signs of it right now. And that means that if that happens, then the empire will be under even more economic strain to keep the dollar as the global currency, and even more strain to try to finance its deficits and debts.
Yeah, we got to wait and see if what effect these Trump tariffs have. I know there's a sizable number of analysts like David Stockman that believe this is going to be, very, very negative and actually harmful for the United States. I know some of the Trump team insists it's going to be a big positive. It may just turn out to be a nothing burger. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. economy already has grown at about half the rate of the Russian economy. And yet we got people, pundits, columnists like this Mark Thiessen. He wrote one of the most ridiculous pieces of nonsense in the Washington Post on Monday, in which he insisted that Russia's economy is bleeding out. It's like, dude, last year the U.S. economy was like 2.3%. That was its economic growth rate. Russia's is 4.1%. So if they're bleeding out, man, that means we don't have a drop of blood left in our body. Come on. Unbelievable. Just, you know, it's almost like you got to go to school to be this stupid. You have to get a special degree. You know, yeah, I'm measuring his stupidity. I'm going to be the summa cum laude graduate. Thank you. You know, stupid is as stupid does. I can't believe these people, but that's what they write. So, you know, when you shroud yourself in fantasy, and then you start believing your own nonsense, that, you know, you remember back when you were a little kid, and you tied on your bath towel or sheet around your shoulders thinking you were Superman?
Yep.
And okay, how high a building did you jump off of thinking you were going to fly?
No, off the bed.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah, okay. That's because you were smart. I don't think I was that smart. I may have jumped off a shed, but the point is, you know, it's one thing to have the childish fantasy. Hey, I put on the cape, I can fly. But what these guys are doing is they're saying, man, we're just going to, you know, we're going to send our military and they're going to collapse Russia and collapse Iran and collapse China. We're like that, you know, like that silly kid with the fake Superman cape. Only we can't fly. So
now let's transition, Larry, real quick to what's going on with the so-called negotiations between Trump and Putin, and the latest rhetoric coming out of the White House about I was so pissed off that that Putin questioned the legitimacy of Zelensky, when Trump questioned the legitimacy of Zelensky also.
Yeah, well, not only that, Zelensky signed a decree based upon a resolution passed by his National Security Council in September of 2022 that no one on the Ukrainian side, no one, including Zelensky, I repeat, no one can talk to the Russians, and specifically Putin. Can't talk to him. To do so is illegal. So who's Putin supposed to talk to? You know, if Trump's gonna bitch at him for, hey, you're dragging your feet on negotiations, all Putin's gonna say, who the hell am I supposed to talk to? Because everybody in Ukraine says it's against the law to talk to me. So, you know, you're gonna what? Talk to my hand? So that's number one. Number two, they agreed with the United States for a 30-day ceasefire on attacks on electrical infrastructure. Russia's upheld its end of the deal. Ukraine just launched 2 more attacks on infrastructure within the last 12 hours. They've launched one almost every day. So they're breaking that. Well, that's not Putin's fault. And then you've got this Black Sea deal that the United States and Russia negotiated in Saudi Arabia. And the deal is going to allow grain and fertilizer shipments out of the Black Sea. But to do so, the ships the sanctions on the maritime vessels, as well as on the bank that receives the money and payments for the grain and the fertilizer, that has to be lifted. The United States said, okay, yeah. Except the only problem is the ones who are imposing the sanctions are the Europeans. And, you know, they came out immediately and said, we're not going to lift any damn sanctions. Screw you. So again, how is that Vladimir Putin dragging his feet? He's agreed to do these things and he's waiting on the United States to deliver. Donald Trump's dragging his own feet. It's not the Russians. It's Trump. But the problem is Trump and his team aren't listening. You know, if somebody comes up to you and has a knife in hand and threatens you, and you'll say, "Hey, back off, or I'm going to shoot you. I have a gun," and they keep coming at you, they're going to get shot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Russia's done the equivalent to us. They said, basically back off, stop supplying the intelligence and weapons to the Ukrainians. Stop it now. And tell the Ukrainians to get out of our territory. They do that, then we're on the way that we can have something to talk about. But the Trump administration is not doing that. They're wanting to blame the Russians for sabotaging this progress, and it's not the Russians' fault at all.
So what is it before we? I know you're busy and you have another platform you have to go to, but where does this leave everybody? We're on the verge of a conflict between Russia and the collapse of the Ukrainian armed forces, and we see that Trump is still implementing some of the same policies as Biden. Where does that leave this situation? Will Russia just say, you know what? I've done my best. The global South, you've seen, we've tried to make peace. Forget it. We're taking Odessa. We're taking the rest of the former Russian regions. And then when we're done, they can have what's left.
Yeah. Yeah. They ought to play that theme music from that old TV show, Rawhide. Rolling. Keep those wagons rolling. That's the Russians, man. They're rolling. And they're not going to stop. And the Ukrainians are going to beat. The Ukrainians are going to be defeated militarily. They're already losing, but they're going to lose a lot more. And the Russians now are just getting warmed up. I understand that there was a meeting today of the National Security Council. Putin convened an emergency session. So I think some of the things they're talking about is the fact that NATO countries are continuing to sponsor attacks. We saw those four American soldiers that reportedly drowned up in Lithuania. They drove their armored personnel carrier. Well, where was that armored personnel carrier operating? It was operating right on the border of Belarus.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell are they doing? They died doing something they probably shouldn't have been doing. Mm-hmm. Then Germany's deployed 5,000 troops to Estonia. Could you imagine what we would be saying if the Russians deployed 5,000 troops to Mexico on our border? You think we'd be cool with that? Oh, hell no. We'd be out of our friggin' minds. Yet we continue to get engaged with provocation after provocation after provocation. And one of these days, Russia is going to punch back. And when we get smacked in the face, we're not going to like it.
Mm-hmm. So in closing, Larry, again, where does this leave us? Where does this leave Russia? Because they're being boxed in, and you can't just keep approaching, as you said, a person with a gun that's telling you, hey, step back. I don't want a conflict with you, but you continue to encroach upon their space, and you're showing nothing but intransigence and anger towards them. Where does this lead us?
Yeah. No, tell you what, it puts us on the threshold of war, and the likelihood of a war that's going to maybe even come here to the American homeland. I am especially worried about what it is we're getting prepared to do to Iran. Because, we're counting, the Russian and Chinese aren't going to do anything. If you're sitting out in the street and your neighbor's sitting next to you, you're both on, let's say, the front stoop of your house, front steps, and you see your neighbor across the street walks out and they're getting attacked by some robbers or muggers. Do you just sit there and watch and go, oh man, that's terrible. Too bad. They should have stayed in their house. Or do you get up and go get engaged?
Yes, sir.
I think Russia and China aren't going to sit there and let their neighbor be taken out by us, because they understand that if we don't cut this shit out right now, they're coming for me next.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if Russia and China, despite having done military exercises with Iran, won't do anything to protect Iran, what other country is going to trust them?
That's right.
Hey, you signed an agreement and you didn't lift a finger? You said it was a security arrangement and you did nothing? What the hell should I have? Why should I have any agreement with you? Your word means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's where this is headed. That's why I think, you know, if the United States proceeds with an attack on Iran, it's going to blow up any chance of a normal relationship with the United States. And Russia and China are going to, you know, they may even retaliate militarily. You know, the United States wants to pretend, oh, we haven't done anything. Oh, you know, as Ray McGovern calls it, male bovine excrement, the MBE. Sounds like an honorary degree the Queen of England used to award. Here's your MBE. The fact of the matter is, we learned from that New York Times article on Monday that the United States has authorized U.S. military officers have provided the intelligence, helped do the planning, identified the targets, issued the orders. We've done everything. It's almost like you got a comatose patient. We load the gun up, we put the gun in the patient's hand, and we help pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it goes off, we blame the comatose patient. Oh, geez, I don't know how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have committed acts of war against Russia. We have done things to Russia that if Russia did those to us, we'd be at war with Russia. That's where this makes absolutely no sense, that we keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And man, at some point you push and it's going to get pushed back on you. So that's where I think we're going. How's that for a cheery answer?
Well, listen, Anna Jackson gets the last question of the day before Larry goes on his merry way. Anna says, who is Trump actually making these amazing deals with that actually pan out with other than the fraudsters?
Yeah, no, it looks like they got the Zionists got their hooks in him. And, you know, he's dancing on their string. They're pulling the strings. He's doing the dancing.
Well, Larry, thank you again for joining me on short notice, man. You always come through for me. I really, really appreciate it.
Guys, has it really been almost 50 minutes?
Yeah. It's all. I'm looking 47 minutes, 33 seconds.
Boy, time goes fast when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Larry, man, I appreciate it, man. I'll hit you up later on, man. Be safe.
All right, brother. Always happy to accommodate.
All right,
you behave yourself.
I will. I sure will,
all
man.
Right.
I'll talk to you later.
Later.
Everybody, and thank Larry. Again, hit the like button, everybody. Please hit the like button. So I told you, this is the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. So listen, I want to thank each and every one of you for your time today. We're going to have another live stream coming up either tomorrow or Friday, and we also have a channel member and Patreon stream coming up this week before the week's end, okay? I want to thank all of you for your time, for your participation, everything. It means the world to me that you would give your ear to listen to truth, because with all of this foolishness and all of the distraction out there, it's hard to get people to recognize truth and to listen to truth and to accept truth. So I want to thank each and every one of you. And now, as we go out, like I always say, look at each other and do right by each other. Not because there's some material gain to it or because some accolades or some applaud is coming from it. Do right by each other because it's the godly, the right, and the humane thing to do. All right? Because even when no one else is watching you, God Almighty is watching you. And as my mother always says, he sits high but he looks low. I want to thank you all, and I want to say to you who loves the truth, know that I love you with all my heart, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, remember to stay righteous and hit that like button. Hit that like button. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you. We're out of here. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a